Hello, I'm Katie Manning, and I played Jo Grant Jones on Doctor Who. And you're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Go on, darlings, keep collecting.
Larry, it's Fraser. And you use, they all say, who is Doctor Who? Where is he from?
What does he do? They wonder who is Doctor Who? So I ask you, who's Doctor Who?
Welcome back to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, the podcast that explores the real-time world of Doctor Who collecting and all kinds of Doctor Who merchandise. And sometimes just Doctor Who. Brought to you in part by Forbidden Planet and Bags Unlimited Incorporated. I am Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been a Doctor Who collector now since 1981. That's 44 years. Lots of experience. Welcome to the 94th episode of our show, celebrating Doctor Who collecting and much more. A little about me. Stop me if you've heard this one, but I did open one of the first Doctor Who stores in Chicago that exclusively served the Doctor Who fans. This was back in 1984, and I named the store Bundles from Britain after an article I read in Fantasy Empire. We just celebrated the 40th anniversary of the founding of that store, and I found out we were mentioned in a great book called Red, White, and Who, the story of Doctor Who in America. Bundles from Britain lives on page 384. You can find a link, by the way, to buy this book on the front page of our website at drwhocollectors.com. We just want everybody to have a copy. We are part of the Direction Point Doctor Who Podcast Network. You can find some great podcasts at directionpoint.org. That was pretty dramatic. Directionpoint.org. And if you are a Doctor Who podcaster, join today, and you can join the ranks of podcasts like Traveling the Vortex, Time Streams, Police Box in a Junkyard, the Doctor Who Target Book Club, Doctor Who Literature, the Doctor's Beard Podcast, and Time Ram. For more information, go to directionpoint.org. And of course, when I talk about links, there are two great resources for collectors out there that are free. And you can use them to help organize your collection or look up what's available out there. And so we've got here timelash.com, and under that heading, go to the TARDIS library and check that out. New releases, go back to 64, see what was released in publication order. And they usually have just media there, so that means no magazines, unfortunately, but books, videotapes, laser discs, things like that. And if you need to go further than that, if you do need to find magazines, Dalek weather vanes, things like that, then you need House Transcendental Toy Box, and that's at drwhotoybox.co.uk. David J. Howe, great friend. He'll be on a future show with us real soon. So I'm also in a new book I want to talk about here. It's called Fantastic, a celebration of fans discovering Doctor Who. So allows fans of the longest running series of the science fiction show to let you know how they became fans, including my story. You can find that at Zeppo Publishing, but the book will be officially released on October 18th at Doctoberfest. More on that later. If you're looking for great Doctor Who items at great prices, look no further than DoctorWhoStore.com. That's in the name, by the way. They have exactly what you need. And if you live in the Chicago area or western suburbs, you can select free pickup from either store location. And while you are there, browse the incredible selection they have of Doctor Who and other science fiction and fantasy items. The Lombard location is open Wednesday through Saturday. They also have one in Logan Square. For hours, locations, and all that information, go to alienentertainment.com. And you can also find great Doctor Who items right here at my website, drwhocollectors.com. Click on merchandise links, and you can shop at Forbidden Planet, one of our sponsors. Just visit our website, select the links, find what you want, check out on Forbidden Planet, and a portion of that sale goes back to the podcast. And don't forget, we're on eBay. We finally found that eBay was our least expensive option for selling our extra Doctor Who items. And we'll also have a dealer table at some of the conventions coming up, so you can look for yourself to see what you need, especially Target books. I've got a lot of those. So all proceeds, of course, benefit the podcast. Don't forget our friends at Who North America, Keith and Jenny and David. Great folks. You can find them at www.whona.com. Probably don't need the W's at this point, but that's okay. And, of course, our friends in London at the Who Shop of London. They are listeners to the show, so thank you, Alex, and the whole crew for listening. You can find them at thewhoshop.com. That's thewhoshop.com. Of course, on our website, in addition to all podcast episodes, all 94 episodes are up there. Some places only keep the last 10, by the way. We have our complete guide to Doctor Who classic hardcover books. And we even have reprints that some people didn't know existed. So what's happening? So, again, Chicago TARDIS announcing its full guest lineup for November, including our headline guest, Christopher Eccleston, all day Saturday. Because of the demand for tickets for autographs and photographs, they will not be able to do a meet and greet for Christopher Eccleston. It just doesn't work out. But there will be meet and greets for some of the other guests. So keep an eye on ChicagoTARDIS.com for information there. But I believe Saturday only tickets are sold out. So there are some weekend passes still available. Unfortunately, we had to announce that Robert Strange had to cancel his appearance due to other commitments. However, do not despair. In his place will be our good friend Clem So, and you'll get to meet him. Also with Christopher Eccleston and Clem So, you get to see Joe Martin, Carol Ann Ford, Jason Haig-Ellery, Annette Badland, Mickey Lewis, Steph DeWally, Sean Carlson, Miles Richardson, Jacqueline King, Mickey Lewis, Susan Twist, Stephen Love, Christopher Jones, Alex McQueen, and Fraser Hines, and also Mr. Peter Purvis, who is also on our podcast. He's looking forward to seeing me. So that'll be fun. The convention is set for November 28th, 29th, and 30th at the Westin Hotel in Lombard. Tickets available at ChicagoTARDIS.com. Follow them on all social media platforms for all the latest updates. And keep that website bookmarked. All right, Doctoberfest Regenerate, set for Saturday, October 18th. I am the main guest. My presentation this year on Doctor Who Toys and Games from 64 to as close to the present day as I can get. Don't forget, we also have a Punch and Judy show, and Zeppo Publishing will be there with its new book, Fantastic, which will be released for the first time, and you can get those signed by the authors and by some of the people who appear in the book, including myself. So there you go. We will have our panel inside the Who North America store in their new multi-purpose room. And my my dealer table, will be outside in the tent. So be sure to stop by and take a look. If you are a convention promoter and you would like me to present at your convention or Doctor Who festival, contact me and I will make that happen. Doctor Who Collectors Podcast at gmail.com, and let's see if we can make that happen. All right, so back to our website for just a moment. There are many rumors out there amongst the collecting world about second and third printing hardcover books. I'm always on the lookout for concrete existence of their proof. And so what we'd like to get, if you have a third printing of Space War, which I think we've pretty much decided it didn't exist. But even better, we've also figured out that there might not have been a second printing of Loch Ness Monster. So if you do have one that says second impression and does not say third impression, let me know, because that would be an appearance worth noting. You can send those details, a picture of the book, the spine, and the page where it says the printing. That's important. At Doctor Who Collectors Podcast at gmail.com with hardcover proof in the subject line. So far, nobody has taken me up on that one. On today's show, this is an exciting show. I get to speak with Dylan Rees and Keith Barnfather. And if you know that name, then you know all about the Mythmakers series. So this is a book that just came out from Telos Publications called Myths and Legends, the Reeltime Pictures Story, now available on Amazon.com. However, I should let you know the Amazon.com version has black and white photographs only. The copy I have, which I got directly from England, has color photos. So if you want the color photos, you're going to have to go to England and import it in. But we talk to them today, and I believe, if I remember right, Keith is in Cyprus and Dylan is in the UK. So we have them both on the program. I want to thank our patrons. If you're a Patreon subscriber, thank you so much. We try to keep our exclusive material, especially our video interview content, to that page only. And you can get there from the $15 level or above. Just go to patreon.com/Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Of course, you can support us at any level. If you'd like to support us at Podbean, you can go to drwhocollectors.podbean.com, click the Become a Patron button, and support us at any level you feel comfortable. Our theme song is Who's Doctor Who, composed by Barry Mason and Les Reed, performed by Fraser Hines. And by the way, the guitar on that is by Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. You can hear this podcast just about anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and Podbean. And also, you can find this pretty much anywhere. If you type into your podcast provider, Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, we should come up. We are also a Direction Point Network podcast. After a quick break here, we will have My Time, then our main story, and of course, we will round it off with the most outrageous offer. Stay tuned.
Traveling the Vortex.
Are you ready to embark on an epic journey through time and space? Join the thousands of Whovians around the world who've discovered Traveling the Vortex, the ultimate Doctor Who podcast for die-hard fans and curious newcomers alike.
Every week, we dive deep into the Whoniverse, discussing the episodes, theories, and hidden gems. We dissect the Doctor's adventures, share behind-the-scenes stories, and explore the legacy of this iconic show.
Traveling the Vortex brings fans together, fostering a global community of Whovians. Whether you're a fan of classic or new Who, there's something for everyone.
Join us on this incredible journey as we unravel the mysteries of time and space.
Don't miss out. Subscribe to Traveling the Vortex today on your favorite podcast platform.
Traveling the Vortex. Your ticket to adventure awaits.
Traveling the Vortex is a proud member of the Direction Point Podcast Network. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
I'm Juliet.
And I'm Nathan.
Experience Doctor Who from the very beginning through a classic fan's eyes.
And through the eyes of a new Who fan.
Reminisce and relive those classic moments with Nathan as he offers fun insight.
Or experience them for the first time with Juliet as she dwells on social issues, history, fashion, and the size of a flashlight.
We're the Time Streams podcast.
Find us on Spotify, Stitcher, or Apple Podcasts. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
It's my time. And welcome back. It's time for My Time. Welcome back to the podcast. It's been a great time. We just wrapped up Doctoberfest 2025. We had a great time. I did 2 panels on toys and games of Doctor Who from 1964 to the present. There was a Punch and Judy show. There was a food truck that was absolutely phenomenal. We had a lot of people stop down there, some from as far away as South Dakota. And so, yes, there will be another Doctoberfest next October. So watch my website for that. Now, what's coming up? I talked about it in the opening, but Chicago TARDIS is coming up in just a few weeks, and we want to make sure you got your tickets. Unfortunately, Saturday only tickets are sold out, and all the hotel rooms are sold out. It's going to be a big one this year, so do that. And was not on the introduction, I don't think, but I'm also now a guest at Consinity. I've been there for a while, and then they didn't have me, and this year they're bringing me back. So that should be fun. As far as what else is going on, still trying to figure out the tariff situation. I've had to pay a couple of those, and I wish it would go away, and I hope it does, because it's really hurting people. And I know there are people out there going, but wait, doesn't the country pay that? Well, no. I pay the service, UPS, DHL. DHL pays that country pays us. So it's a tax on the end user. That's what I figured out. And I've shared it with a couple of people. I showed them the tariff bill and they're like, oh, that's interesting. So maybe if more people figure that out, they'll be a little more vocal about it, but that's okay. Trying not to get political here. I know that's very sensitive to people, and I do respect people's opinions. I just letting you know that's what's happening. That's why there's not a lot of Doctor Who imports right now, because of those. So, well, let's hope that wraps up soon. So anyway, we've got a great, exciting show coming up for you here right after the break. We're going to be talking with Keith Barnfather and Dylan Rees, Myths and Legends, the story of Reeltime Publications. And in this case, we've got the author of the book and the CEO of the company. So that should be fun. All right. So after this quick break, we'll get on to that. So stay tuned.
The vervoids are probably the best dirty joke in Doctor Who.
They're hermaphroditic plants.
A lot of plants are.
So there you go. It's based on science.
No, they'll ship anything.
There are probably 11 and handle shippers out there. You just have to drill a hole where his mouth is, and you're all set.
You know he needs the room. I've seen it in pictures.
I'm not saying you're not a fan. I'm saying you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Doctor Who gives a drunken Doctor Who podcast for the end times.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Up there is the scanner, those are the doors, that is a chair with a panda on it. Sheer poetry, dear boy.
And now it's time for our main story. Today on the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, I am happy to announce a book that has just come out recently called Doctor Who Myths and Legends, the Reeltime Pictures Story. And joining me today is a real treat. I've got the author here, Dylan Rees, and the grand poobah of Reeltime Pictures, Mr. Keith Barnfather. So welcome, gentlemen.
Well, hello. I've never been called a poo bar before.
The grand, I don't know, the grand Giesel, the grand head of...
Now, my son has called me many things, but not that.
Well, it's great to have you both here from joining us from Cyprus and the UK. So this is, technology is a wonderful thing.
Indeed, it's great to be here.
Thank you.
And I could be lying. I could be in Clapham for all you know.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Are we all drinking tea?
Coffee for me. So
tea
yeah,
for me.
Yeah. I'm on the coffee.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Well, anyway, it's great to have Reeltime Pictures has been around for a long time.
40 years, funnily enough.
Yes, I know. And the anniversary. So my first question, let me go to Keith here. So what prompted the start of this wonderful company?
Well, the company itself was, when I started, was just a vehicle. I mean, the idea was when I left Channel 4, I wanted to start doing corporate and business television as my mainstay for employment. But obviously, being a fan, I wanted also to be able to make productions related to Doctor Who and science fiction as a sideline. I never intended or expected it would be a profitable side of the business that I could live on. So forming a company to do both those things, and also I was being paid to do some part-time work for a facilities company. It just made sense. So I bought a company off the shelf. We can do that in the UK, or at least we used to be able to do that. And then you just change the name and start trading. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I know as early, I'm going to say, well, the first Doctor Who related thing was in the mid 80s. Is that right?
The first two productions were. This is where Dylan knows everything more than me now.
Yes, that's true.
He always did, but the first two Mythmakers were shot back to back at the end of '84, Dylan, weren't they?
Yeah, correct.
And then released in '85.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And of course, Dylan Rees wrote the book Myths and Legends, so you probably do have a deeper background to the company than the head of the company himself.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Dylan. What got you into Doctor Who and going down this path?
I mean, I got into Doctor Who in 1989, which is in some ways a bad year to get into the show.
Yes.
But in other ways, it was sort of Doctor Who was a complete thing that you had to go out and find all the pieces of at that point. And as a result of that, there was something about Doctor Who that drew me to sort of the behind the scenes stuff. So quite early on in my fandom, I'm talking at like 11, 12 years old, I was going to Doctor Who conventions and I saw some Mythmakers for sale there. I saw videos that Keith had done called the Panopticon tapes, which were videos of Doctor Who conventions that I hadn't been to. And I just started picking those things up. And I've always been fascinated with the sort of behind the scenes element, the actors, the directors, the producers, and just finding out more about it. So Mythmakers was a gateway into that.
Yes, and for us here in the United States, we didn't get a lot of those, but I do remember picking up a VHS tape here of Time War back in the
wartime.
late 80s. Yes, wartime.
Wartime. Okay, it's all right. I'm not offended.
Wartime. It's early, guys. Anyway,
no, it's not.
And it was nice. Keith signed this for me last year because Keith and I met at Oktoberfest last year in Canby, Indiana. Which
crazy that it's taken so long for us to meet. Actually, really.
Yeah, I know.
40 years.
40 years, and I know we've been connected before that, but this is kind of nice to have you down there and have the full table experience of what you had to bring, and it was very positively received too. So it was a wonderful thing, and we're only about less than a month away from the next one, so it should be fun. Let me go back to anyway with wartime here. When did you start, Keith? When did you go from Mythmakers to productions like wartime? Sorry.
Well, I mean, Mythmakers is a production. I'm not being pedantic.
I mean,
like
a dramatization.
Dramas
like a drama.
rather than documentary. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think right from the start, those of us that were involved who became involved with me in real time, all of us had the hankering to make drama. I mean, I think all fans do in the back of their minds. Is that, and certainly Doctor Who fans, I think far more than any other science fiction genre for some reason, with the exception possibly of Star Trek, have got this thing that they want to be far more involved in some way with making something that's related to the program. Maybe it's a science fiction fandom thing, I don't know. But we'd always wanted to do something related to science fiction and to actual drama for Doctor Who. So there were lots of attempts. Dylan has nicely catalogued them in the book to try slowly, there were lots of attempts that I made to try and do that with some of the other people that I knew at the time, but we never really made it happen. And that was really down ultimately in the end to John Nathan Turner not really feeling that we could achieve what we were saying we could achieve. And there was also, in some cases, also legal reasons as well.
Right.
So ultimately, in the end, I think it was about 1987. I'm just waiting for my cataloger in the other end of to correct me if I'm wrong. I basically, oh goody, we should have an shouldn't we?
We could do a contest here.
It'd be good. Oh God, I'm glad you didn't.
Who
think
knows
of that.
it better, Dylan?
Dylan would win hands down. Trust me. In fact, I'll aside for a second and say one of the lovely things about this is that for 40 years, I haven't had a chance to think about, David Howe. I've often said David Howe has this incredible mind and he writes everything down that he does with the dates, the times, everything, and keeps copies of even the toilet paper. He keeps everything.
That's true.
It is true. Whereas I'm sort of going next thing, got to do that, got to do this. I cannot spend the time to catalogue what I'm doing, cataloguing Doctor Who, So it's been wonderful having Dylan go through probably not for him, but for me, it's been wonderful going through my life and basically telling me what I did. I mean, the book for me, the irony for me was a couple of weeks ago actually opening the book to find out something I needed to know about Reeltime. And I think that's the wonderful thing the book is. It's a great piece of reference material about the program, about Reeltime, sorry, and the programming we've done, and also a lovely narrative of what we've done over the 40 years. But to get back to dramas,
yes.
Ultimately, in the end, I decided the only way I was ever going to be able to make anything was basically to circumnavigate the BBC legally. So I went to Derek Sherwin, who at that time definitely held the rights to Unit and Benton. No, Hazeman and Lincoln, I think it was Unit.
Lincoln.
Yeah. Am I right? Good. Derek owned the rights to Bentham. So I got permission from both of them to do something, and it was just then a question of what could we make and how could we make something of reasonable quality on the money that we had to do it. And the rest is history in a way.
Yes. And I also noticed that the first two myth makers happened to be Michael Wisher and John Leeson. So nice way to bring those two into that drama. Dylan, for you,
I should correct you that John Leeson isn't in that one.
Oh, sorry, excuse me, John Levine.
John Levine.
He's later on down. He's the 13th.
It's okay. It's all right. Just read the book. Dylan's going.
I've actually got.
Hey,
it
everybody.
And, my bifocals didn't quite.
It's okay.
So it's okay.
I don't know what I've done. I hardly expect you to.
And I did read the book. It's a wonderful read. Dylan, just getting it into you, the myth and legend. So when you're doing your research, how did you separate the myth from the fact?
Well, I mean, it was a lot of digging. So the first thing I had to do was basically watch Keith's entire back catalogue and output, which was a fantastic thing to do, but also, it's quite a big task to take on. Like, we're talking 250 odd productions there, some of which are half an hour, some of which exist in a half an hour and an hour long format. Some are an hour and a half. And so you've got to find time to, and then it's about piecing together who was involved in all of these things, who were the sort of mainstays at the start, who sort of came and went, who appeared later on. And so it was a thing of sort of weaving a narrative together in my own head, just from the productions. And Keith, when he released them on DVD, sort of recorded new intros for a lot of them. So that gave a lot of information. And then me and Keith just spoke a lot. I mean, sometimes we were speaking twice a day. It was booking in chats over Zoom like we're doing now and just going. And sometimes it was sort of I want to talk to you about, your childhood and your early career. And sometimes it was on this date, these two things seem to happen at the same time, but that can't be right. Can you remember? And he either did or he didn't. And then it'd be like, go to David J. Howe, go to this person, go to that, but just to try and, figure out the narrative. I mean, one of the things that we've talked about before, me and Keith, is that Mythmakers number 11, the slot was empty for ages. So you get Mythmakers 10 come out and Mythmakers 12. Mythmakers 11 was saved for Douglas Adams, but for various reasons that didn't happen. But there's no reason, if you don't have a complete catalogue, for you to sit there and go, oh, Mythmakers 11 came out later. There's just you just wouldn't think it. You just go, well, that's the order it came out in. And so it's sort of unpicking those things and finding out the reason why.
Yeah, and I noticed 11 is Victor Pemberton. So that's and it comes after 19. But that's how things go sometimes. And it would have been great to see Douglas Adams, I know, in that role, because he was such a brilliant comedic mind, not just comedic, but logical and knew a story from beginning to end. So great stuff. And anyway, if anything is needed from David Howe, I'm seeing him next Saturday for his new book. Listeners, Who Me is coming out, and another Tell Us publication. We'll be talking to him on the next episode.
Amazing.
So,
yes, but my book came out first.
That's right. That's why we're doing this now. And this episode comes out before that one. So
yes.
there you go.
Yes. Yes.
It's not a competition, Keith. It's not a competition.
Oh, no. Of course it's not.
Yes, it is.
Of course it's not.
Oh, this is awesome.
I should point out to everybody that David and I and Dylan, we're all great mates.
Oh,
so
of course. Yes.
We're only joking.
Okay. And so let me put this out here for you, Dylan, again here. So anything that surprised you or was unexpected that you discovered about Reeltime during your research?
It wasn't so much that there was lots of unexpected things in terms of the company. We certainly dug out a lot of old artwork and photos and things that I'd never seen. So in that respect, that was sort of unexpected. At the same time, watching through the catalogue of myth makers, there were people like Jack Pitt and Ian Collier and Barbara Clegg, who I'd never really seen interviewed before, who all said things about the show and about people involved in the show that I wasn't really expecting to hear. And you kind of think, with classic Doctor Who being so old now, that you sort of know it all. And this information that Keith has catalogued in his Mythmakers and his documentaries and all these things has been out there for a long time, but for whatever reason, you personally or other people haven't picked up on. So it just goes to show for me that you could still learn something new about the show that you think you know so well. And I like the shelves behind me are full of books on Doctor Who, so I'm pretty well versed in most of Doctor Who. But it just goes to show there's still stories to be told about the show, about the fans of the show, about the whole culture that surrounds the show. And that's the sort of thing that really interests me and what I wanted to get into at the heart of the book.
Well, that's great, because I know that's true, because I know I'm surrounded by 1,000 books on Doctor Who and various things. And every time I talk to someone, like when I did my interview with Peter Purvis a couple of years ago, and he told me stuff that I had never heard before and stuff that was just coming back into his memory about his beers with William Hartnell that were like, wow, that's really interesting. And it's something that's never been written down. And it's really neat to see this incredible catalog of some of the people here, of course, no longer with us, that we can go back and see what they were saying and what they were talking about. Just incredible stuff. I'm thinking of Michael Craze, for starters. You know, I met him at a Chicago convention in '84, and wonderful guy, sadly no longer here, but gave a really good interview on the Mythmakers. You know, did a really good thing and gave us a lot of insight into what his thoughts were, which we can't access anymore. So this is definitely something that's important in the historical record of the show. And, Keith is to be thanked for that. It's a wonderful thing. Now, again, with both of you guys here. So, Dylan, how did you connect with Keith in accessing archives or talking to people in that world or getting his contacts, or how did that work out?
Well, Keith and I knew each other already. I'd written about some of his drama output for a different project. And when we sort of got talking about doing the book, Keith was my greatest resource. And if he didn't know something, he'd be like, you should speak to this person, speak to that person. And, I think I interviewed about 30, 40 people in total for the book, which vary from sort of names in fandom that perhaps you're not familiar with, the wonderful Rob Thrush, who shoots a lot of the real-time stuff now. It may not be a name that you 100% have heard of, but his name is on countless productions you will have seen, that through to people like Sophie Aldred, who's obviously been in some of Keith's dramas and is now a Mythmakers host. And it's really just chatting to them and getting their story and their version of events and what they've got to tell. And for some people, their work on a real-time project was a couple of days' work 30 years ago, or for some people it's a regular occurrence that they've got lots of fresh memories of, like Robert Dick, who's sort of the main host or one of a rotation of hosts these days. And for some people it's the most sort of they had ambitions to work in film, television, or whatever, but they went off and did something else. So actually, they look back at their time working on the early Mythmakers or Wartime as something really exciting and a part of their life that they're no longer active in, but look back on it really fondly and have fantastic memories of.
Okay, and Keith, just a wild thing here. Do you have a complete archive of everything you produced for Reeltime in Doctor Who?
Yeah, I mean, one of my when I was at Channel 4, I was in business development, which was basically the BBC Enterprises of Channel 4. So I learned a lot about running a business and about archiving. And also remember, I grew up during the time and went to the BBC and worked at the BBC in the time that they were throwing away episodes of Doctor Who. I mean, I was there when when I organised the second convention, we're trying to get Galaxy 4 from the BBC. And they agreed for us to have it. And while we got all the clearances from the actors, they then destroyed the story.
Yeah,
we were that close to saving Galaxy 4. So, I lived through a time of disbelief that the BBC would be so short-sighted. They've changed little since, in my opinion.
Right.
That's my own. But that made me have the kind of attitude of everything is of importance. There are obviously some things over the years that I've wiped, corporate and business television rushes I've wiped, but I've kept all the edit masters of every corporate and business television production we've done. I've also kept the entire rushes for everything we've ever done connected with Doctor Who. So let alone we got the edit masters, we have all of the rushes.
Nice. That's good to know, because I know we, of course, in America, we had no idea that they were destroying stuff over there. We just, we didn't get it here till 1975. And we also didn't know that having it here in 1975 would save a bunch of color John Pertwee episodes, because my local station in Chicago kept everything. So Terror of the Autons, Mind of Evil, all taped by a local person here, was able to get that back, and now we have it. So it's good for that. And I'm always hopeful that somewhere they're going to go to some country and says, hey, we got this can here. Maybe we'll get more, but that's great to know.
It's funny. Sorry, Dylan.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, at the moment it's funny because I'm actually going through, to a degree, reliving my past at the moment, because I'm editing Ian Levine's Mythmakers, a contentious person in Doctor fandom, to say the least, but a very old friend and a person I know well enough to know his faults are equally matched by his assets. But his problem is he has a huge problem being able to basically relate to other people.
Right.
That's his problem, in my opinion. But Ian, of course, is instrumental in saving probably 20 or 30 Doctor Who episodes that would not exist today if it wasn't for Ian.
That's true.
Because of who he is, because of how dogmatic, because of his bullish attitude is, I will not accept no.
Right.
Now that can be something that is incredibly difficult to live with, trust me, I know. But it is also an asset that made it possible to save all those episodes. He tells in his Mythmakers about going to the Brentford Film Library, the Enterprises Library, and stopping them junking 3 Doctor Who stories they were about to destroy. If he hadn't have gone in that day, because he was actually buying Doctor Who episodes at the time, they would no longer exist.
Right.
This is the crazy thing that the BBC were doing. There was this woman, I've forgotten her name, who arbitrarily was just junking not just Doctor Who, television programs, because they had this finite library and she was given carte blanche to decide what to get rid of because they'll never need it again. And Ian said again, because I'm in the middle of it, it's obviously at the front of my mind, he said to her one day, VHS had just started at this point, he said, one day, I'm telling you, these programs will appear in the high street in Woolworths and WH Smith's, and people will buy them. And she laughed at him.
He definitely a visionary.
Yeah. In many ways, Ian was. I mean,
Yeah.
he's now, as you know, gone on to controversially and technically illegally recreating Doctor Who episodes using AI. I'm not going to offer an opinion on that, but it obviously does make his Mythmakers very interesting to watch, and that'll be out in about a month.
I bet.
He also gives a very interesting. What I find with the Mythmakers, this is what I was going to say, Dylan. I'd be interested in what Dylan says on this.
Sure.
What Mythmakers does is, because we've interviewed so many people, it gives different views of the same situation. And what Ian brings is a very interesting view on the whole period in the BBC during the 1980s, which of course has many, not just Doctor Who, but the BBC during this time, a lot of controversial things went on. And that is equally true within Doctor Who production. And he lays a bit of that bare, but I obviously in the editing try to make sure none of it's litigious.
Right. I can't wait to see that one, because I am interested in learning more about that. I've spoken with Mr. Levine a couple of times. I know he's not exactly the friendliest person in the world, but he was at least cordial to me and all that. And I've seen a couple of those AIs, and I would say they're not bad, but
there's certainly not something. I think my attitude has always been, as Dylan knows, is that I firmly believe that there's a place for everybody and everything.
Yes.
And I think that carries across to our current political situation, both here and in America. And I think the moment you start saying anybody, that isn't acceptable because I don't believe it's right, is the moment you lose democracy. And I think that's true in fandom and tolerance, of course. And I think that's equally true in our lives and in politics. And bringing the right attitude to it, the Doctor Who attitude to life, I think is a very important thing. Might sound a bit pompous, but I do believe it. Over to you, Dylan.
Well, I mean,
you're Dylan. Go ahead. Yeah.
I spoke to Ian for the book, and he has a unique perspective. But he had a lot of interesting things to bring, and a lot of positivity to bring about Downtime, the production he worked on. And he's somebody that really cares about Doctor Who. As you said, Keith, from your point of view, perhaps he doesn't quite know how to relate that to people. But he only does it because he loves the show. It's just his mannerism sometimes, and his manner sometimes, tick people off on the wrong way. But I had a lovely chat with him for an hour or so, and it was really great. And as you say, I haven't seen Ian's Mythmakers yet, but I imagine, you take a few snippets of Ian's Mythmakers, a few snippets of Eric Saywood's, and a few snippets of John Nathan Turner's, and you're getting three very different perspectives on the same era of the show. And I think it's important that we get all those perspectives, because they are people's perspectives. It's very hard if you've lived through something to be 100% objective about it, even 20, 30, 40 years later. So from that, hopefully we can draw a balanced line of what actually went on from hearing all those different voices.
And that is interesting, because I one of the earliest memories I have in 1984, we had the largest convention in the world here in Chicago, the Ultimate Celebration. And one of the events I attended, when John Nathan Turner walked into the room, Tom Baker left. Would not be in the same room with him. That happened to several occasions, including at the hotel bar. Tom was having a drink. John A. walked in, and Tom said, "I'm gone."
Yeah, but fast forward 15 years, and they were the greatest of buddies, drinking in Soho and what have you. So time is a great healer, and so's perspective.
Yeah, things do change, and it was quite something. And okay, going on to another thing here, and first to Keith. Reeltime was producing the Doctor Who spin-off media long before we did these expanded universes, Battle of Land and Sea and things, and Torchwood and Class. What do you think you gave any inspiration to those projects?
I think it would be somewhat arrogant to think that they wouldn't have happened if Reeltime hadn't existed. I would perhaps, and I think it would be fair to say that we were groundbreaking. I'm not saying the ground was very big; it was very small, a little tiny piece of ground. But we did definitely lead the way. I mean, Reeltime has probably done most things that the BBC did later before they did. Not out of any plan, but I think Dylan knows me well enough that I've always looked for something new to do. That just sort of can't help it. It's just part of my makeup. So I've been like doing live myth makers, which we've done over the last 3 or 4 years. I've been wanting to do that for a long time, and the opportunity finally arose. Whether the BBC would have not got into doing VAM or special features on their DVDs. When we did the first Mythmakers, the BBC were releasing Doctor Who on VHS just as episodes.
Right.
They were doing nothing else. So what we were doing was original. No one was making material available to fans from behind the scenes. And obviously, I'm sure the BBC would have got round to that eventually. I'm sure they would have done. It's not a unique idea. But whether we influenced what they were doing, and perhaps some of the attitudes about making documentaries like we made Return to Devil's End. And I think you can see a direct link between that and some of the BBC behind the scenes documentaries that came later. But whether they would have done that anyway, Downtime, there's a lot. You could look at Downtime in the Doctor Who movie and see a lot that then came into Doctor Who later.
Yes.
Again, that might have happened anyway. It's just style of production. Remember, Doctor Who was always shot in a multi-camera studio environment, 99% of the time. We were shooting Downtime single camera on location. And that's, of course, something they pretty much did, at least single camera, in Doctor Who when it came back in 2005. So some of it is just coincidence, but I do think perhaps some of it, it's difficult for me to be objective, but I would say some of that has come from what we've done. And of course, the BBC have used, ironically, the BBC have used much of our footage over the years in their own value-added material. With the latest documentary about Ian Marter, our interview with him being used extensively in Chris Chapman's special feature in the next Blu-ray set, which is a great honour to me and to Reeltime.
Yeah. Well, I thinking about Downtime, you introduced Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, who is now a canon character in Doctor Who, and that's been pointed out in many publications, including the book here. So, I think it goes without saying that without doing these spin-offs, we wouldn't have this idea, hey, let's do a spin-off on this. Let's do this direction and that. And I imagine more will come as time goes on, because more of these characters, especially, we might even see Benton come back. We might see somebody come back if John Levine's up for it. I don't know, but that's how it goes. It's really a wonderful, and I love Downtime. I think it's one of my favorites from the early days. Dylan, anything in your research to suggest that tie?
I don't think there was anything necessarily to suggest it, but I can't believe. I think for me, Reeltime proved that it was possible, as you say. With something like Return to Devil's End.
Devil's End, yeah.
Yeah, there is a lineage there between the VAM we get, because generally people thought of making of documentaries as you shoot them while you're making the thing. So we've, from a Doctor Who point of view, we've got Who's Doctor Who, and we've got the Silver Nemesis PBS documentary. But to do a retrospective documentary on a singular Doctor Who story, if you'd had said that to somebody in 1993, they probably would have gone, well, that's ridiculous. And then sure enough, it happens. And just to prove that it's possible. And that's, what I think is the interesting thing about Reeltime and Keith, is that he just went out there and did it and made these things, and other people, followed on the way. There have been other people that have tried to launch a regular video series of interviews and or documentary output on Doctor Who, on other shows, and for whatever reason, after one or two, they just sort of drift away. But I mean, it's not just the archive perspective, it's proving that it's possible. And from a drama point of view, I think Downtime feels a lot more like a new series Doctor Who story than a classic series Doctor Who story. And I'm not saying Russell T Davies sat down, watched Downtime and went, I know how to do it in 2005. But, these things also, they just sit. If you're a Doctor Who fan, as a lot of the people making Doctor Who now are, and all of the restoration team and the people who work on the VAM and things like that are, these things are just burned into your psyche of this is how we do things in the Doctor Who world, and so it's, even if it's not a acknowledged inspiration, it's somewhere that there subconsciously.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a lot of the myth makers that I've seen over the years, from either people loaning me tapes or sending, or I had to buy a multinational VCR because very few, if any, became NTSC compatible in the early days. But it was nice to see those. Even they were kind of jumpy and whatnot, but it was wonderful to see some of these early interviews, especially with like the Carol Ann Ford one was a good one back in the day here. Tom Baker's was good. And going to Tom Baker, the Who on Earth is Tom Baker is probably one of the most funny things I've ever seen. So Keith, how did that one come about? And
I'll do another aside and then come back to it. I will come to it, but again, you pushed a button. I do remember talking. I don't remember which actor it was, but I remember talking to an actor before we did their Mythmakers, and they said, "But if I do a Mythmakers, everybody will know all my stories." And they'll hear them over and over again. And I say them at conventions all the time. But if they're on video as well, people will get bored listening to them.
Oh.
And I've told this story now so many times that I'm worried that people like your viewers go, "Oh God, he's telling that story again." So apologies, everybody, but I have to say it the way it is. Okay, so I was working on my corporate side. I was working for an American company actually called McDonnell Douglas Information Systems, and they were a UK subsidiary of McDonnell Douglas. And I worked for them for about 12 years doing corporate and business television for them. But obviously, when I was working for them, we were doing documentaries. And it got to a point where we needed a really good voiceover on one of their productions. And I thought, so I said to the guy who was my contact, Paul Haynes, and I knew he was a science fiction fan. I said, "Paul, we need a voice with gravitas for this. We need someone whose voice will be recognized and people will go, ooh, and they'll be pulled into it." I said, "What about Tom Baker?" And he went, "Great, love it. I'd well like to meet him." So we employed Tom on about 3 occasions for 2 different clients, actually, to do voiceover work. And Tom didn't remember me from the BBC because why would he? I was one of 100 faces, 1,000 faces he would have met. We worked together, and everything was really good. Tom and I got on very well doing the work, and it was very efficient. And he didn't have a problem. Took the money and went home. Then I spoke to his agent about a year afterwards, and his agent was Jackie Lane.
Oh, yes.
I know, which I didn't realize when I first contacted AdVoice, which was his audio company. And I came clean with Jackie, and I said, "You are the Jackie Lane who was in Doctor Who." And she went, "Yeah, why?" "Okay, I got to tell you, my name's Keith, but I am, you know me well, but I am also a Doctor Who fan." And we chatted for a bit. And I said, "Look, the reason I've admitted this now is I'd really like to do an interview with Tom about his time in Doctor Who. Could you ask him now that he knows me, would he do it?" And luckily, and I think it had a lot to do with the fact that he'd already met me, amazingly, he said yes, and we did the Mythmakers. Cutting a long story short, after we'd done the Mythmakers, where at first he wasn't guarded, but and nor was he doing it by the numbers, but he was just being there. But he got into it. And at lunchtime, we had a lovely conversation in the pub. Pubs are very important to Doctor Who actors.
Yes, they are.
And me and Dylan. We chatted, and he came up with some ideas for later in the day. So when we have that lovely shot at the end of his Mythmakers where he walks off and says, "Oh, I was famous once. Once I was adored." That whole sequence, for those who've seen it, is priceless, and it's all Tom. Anyway, so we wrapped. And one of the greatest compliments that's ever been paid to me was that he contacted me, he and his wife, Sue Gerrard, contacted me, I don't know how much longer later, maybe 3 or 4 months, and said, "Would you like to shoot a documentary with us where we do a documentary which we have in mind, you film it, we make it, and you release it?" And I thought for about a nanosecond and immediately said yes. And that's how Who on Earth is Tom Baker? Just Who on Earth is Tom Baker came about. And Sue worked for, I think, Southern ITV company. And so she was a director and she knew exactly what she wanted to do with Tom. So it was I've said to Dylan, one of the first times I've actually sat back, acted purely as a producer and made sure everything happened on the day, and she directed and Tom starred. And I agree with you, it is an amazing snapshot of Tom, and I think a hugely revealing documentary about who that person was at that time.
Yeah, and he has a great comic timing. Sorry, there's a little delay in my microphone, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, our timing today isn't quite as good as Tom.
No, but I will say that Tom's best role after Doctor Who was in Monarch of the Glen, where he played a very comedic great uncle.
He comes off a lot like himself in that.
Yes, and I remember that being close to that Who on Earth is Tom Baker.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I remember when we did his Mythmakers, Tom jokingly in the pub said, I've got my gravestone. Get out of town. I remember driving home going, he's full of shit. Oh.
It's okay. You're good. You're good.
In a nice way. Didn't believe a word.
We're not rated here. So.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry, everybody. And of course, when we get to do the filming, he has his tombstone there, which he's had engraved. And you just sort of think, well, there's somebody. I mean, I'd always thought that Tom was a studied eccentric rather than a true eccentric. And that's a compliment in a way, because I think there's a lot going on in there. Mm-hmm. And it's not just sporadic. There's a lot of thinking going on in being this eccentric person. But he is a true eccentric as well, I think.
Absolutely. Moving on. What role do you think that Reeltime Pictures played in keeping Doctor Who alive during the show's wilderness years?
I think for me, we use this word a lot now that wouldn't have been bandied around like that, but just having fresh content for people, like fresh programming that kept the show a current thing in the mind of fans, be it Mythmakers or documentaries where you're looking back on the show, or making new dramas like Mind Game, like Deimos Rising, like Downtime. Like, it proves that there's still stuff to be done with these characters and corners of the Whoniverse to explore. And I think that, like, for me, especially growing up at that time, these were really important. Downtime in particular, I remember, like, in 1995, it was like, oh my God, there's going to be a new bit of Doctor Who. And I was at the first fan screening at the Panopticon convention in 1995, sort of age 12. And it was like a brilliant moment in my life to sort of sit in a room of 600-700 people watching this new bit of the Brigadier and Sarah and Victoria Waterfield and Travers and the Yeti, and then a few familiar faces as well playing other parts. And it was so exciting. And like, this is pre-Big Finish, this is the nearest you were going to get to these characters, and there's certainly a lineage from something like Downtime to Big Finish in terms of showing, this is possible, that Doctor Who fans can make a professional product for less money than a professional broadcaster and get some fantastic results, I think.
So did sales pick up during that period?
Well, I think it's more down to the period we all live in. I mean, when we started, there was nothing out there that we were doing, so sales were bouncy. They were quite good. They built, to level that we don't get now. But what you've got to bear in mind is that now, I wouldn't say there's competition, but if you bear in mind that every Doctor Who that's released by the BBC has tons of van material on it, value-added material for anybody that doesn't know the expression, special features. And so we're not doing anything unique anymore in that area. So I'm not expecting to get the same amount of sales now than I did when I started. Certainly, they stayed buoyant during the wilderness years, and we were seeing good sales. But I would also say that as the wilderness years progressed, the sales were beginning to drop away. I know, speaking to Jason, Hilary, and Nick, that their sales initially, when the program came back from Big Finish, dropped, but in fact they then went up again. Yes. So it didn't affect them too much. I think what we do now to keep sales at least, one of the other the other thing that's changed is when I started, I would have to hire cameraman and kit and an edit suite, because these things you couldn't afford to have in your home. It would have been 30, 40, 50,000 pounds to own all of it. Not even today, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
But now you can own a camera, you can own an edit suite in your home. You can probably put all that together for, if you're really careful, maybe 1,000, 1,500 quid. So now it's possible to make programming with a lot less money. And that means you can do more than you could have done in the past. So the drop in the amount of sales that you get isn't quite as dramatic and as difficult to deal with as it would have been if you were still encountering the same costs, if that makes any sense to everybody. So what I do now is I try to concentrate on things that the BBC just would never do, like Doctor on Display, the series of DVDs we've been doing on the history of exhibitions. He has one there. What a man. Yeah. And they are unique. And that's something, I'm sure the BBC would have done a short VAM on a release about it, but they would never have made a 5-part series about it. And I think every episode of that is truly stunning. I am absolutely delighted. And the last one, which will be coming out early next year, about the USA tour, is very much something for American fans, and British fans will find fascinating, because it is one of the few areas about the program that is totally American.
And spoiler alert, everybody, I'm on that.
Allegedly.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience to do the USA tours here.
yeah. Well, thanks to Russell McGee for for actually
my good friend
helping.
Russ.
I mean, that's one of the. You have to be so careful not to come across as. I've never been known for my modesty, but at the same time, I don't want to come across as some kind of arrogant 4-letter word. But it is wonderful over the years that, you'll phone somebody up and say, oh, look, it's Keith from Reeltime, never assuming that they've ever heard of me. But then you get, oh, hi, what can I do to help you? And that is one of the loveliest things, is that people actually, with now knowing about the company and now knowing what we do, knowing our history and having some kind of respect for what that is, that they want to be involved. And Russell was absolutely like, oh, God, what can I do to help? Now, for me, that is humbling that somebody feels that way and wants to. I mean, with Dylan as well, he's been so, well, he's never respectful behind my back, but so respectful and helpful with me. And it is truly humbling. And I hope I'd never lose that. I never hope I phone up and say, hi, it's me.
You know who he is.
Exactly. Do what I say.
I think you were channeling Matt Berry from the IT crowd.
I say nothing.
Yes. Dylan, how did you manage to get this complete catalog in here?
How did I manage to get it? Well, it was an interesting So yeah, there was a bit of squeezing. I like the first thing I had to do, as I said, was sort of go through the whole catalogue, and inevitably you have more to say about some productions than you do others. Like John Pertwee's Mythmakers, for instance, you may think, well, that's just a sort of a standard talking heads interview in a couple of different locations. But actually, when you find out sort of the mood, how John was on the day, how like Nick's sort of trepidation, the different people involved in making that production, you actually get 3 or 4 pages out of that is interesting stuff in a way that you're not, with perhaps an interview recorded in a few hours at the Capitol convention, which is a really good interview, but there isn't a huge amount to say on that. So it's really about the production sort of dictating how much space they need. There was a point early on where I'd written about 4 or 5 chapters and I was at 100,000 words, and I really had to sort of pull back from there. But that was, I kind of needed to get it out to see what the book shouldn't be, if that makes sense. And then from that point, I was able to shrink that, and then I really knew what I was doing for the rest of it. But I did things like all the different re-releases. I compared where the edit points and things like that were, and that's how my brain works. But at the same time, nobody wants to read that. Although since saying that in an interview, I've had one person get in touch and go, "Have you still got those notes? I'd love to know the differences." I'm like, I don't think I have, unfortunately. But...
Well, that always opens the door for a sequel.
And here it comes.
Book 2. Dylan, was it difficult to balance being a fan with being a critical historian when writing this book?
Not really, because I knew I was going to go in and, broadly speaking, be positive. There's no point. You can't want to write something like this to sort of tear it apart. And also, I am a fan, And there are a few occasions where I say, I don't think that works, or this didn't work for me. But I'm always, if something doesn't work, I'm interested to hear why. I mean, I think perhaps the most on-record thing that you've talked about a lot, it's on the DVD and VHS, is Mind Game, Keith, not going according to plan. And, so on one hand, I'm not going to give Mind Game the most favourable review because it's got certain issues. But then those issues are documented within... I'm not nasty about it, but, the production has some shortcomings that... Keith has been very open about, and so that's for me what it was like. It was going, why is this not working? And I think it's probably, you could probably count on one hand the things that I'm negative about in the book, But yeah, I'm a fan of these things, and I'm not sort of blowing smoke either. They're good productions, and they're important things for us Doctor Who fans to have. So I'm not going to sit there and mock the hairstyles of somebody in the 80s because it was a different time, or people have different opposing views to the show from my own, but I'm not going to say that their view is wrong or that the production is wrong for letting them air that view. The production's about that person and their views,
Oh, absolutely. And just for the record, I had hair down to my shoulders in the 80s, so I know it doesn't look like it now, but that's how it goes.
I know what you mean.
Yes. It's okay. I'm good with it. It just shows my experience,
One thing that I think one thing you have to do, this sounds like a piece of advice again, I'm sorry everybody.
Nope, go for it.
One thing you really have to do if you're going to get into any kind of professional environment, but certainly if you're going to stick your head above the barrier, the parapet in television, is you got to have Teflon coating, because there's always going to be somebody, as in all life, but specifically in this media, you're going to have somebody who doesn't like what you do.
True.
And for some reason, there tends to be, and it's not Doctor Who, it's generally people don't understand, they don't choose to understand that if they're being critical of a production or the work that somebody did on it, that they're not going to upset them. There's almost like it doesn't matter. So you'll have somebody post a review or say something about what you've done, and you could take it to heart. But I so many stories I could tell you, but my logic is, and I remember saying this to somebody who actually raised this issue with me once, and I said, well, I mean, always listen to what anybody wants to say and any suggestions that people want to make. And I'm always happy if somebody comes up to me at a convention and suggests something. Funnily enough, I'll tell you about something somebody did a few months ago, and in fact, we're doing it. But ultimately, it's if people are spending their money to buy what you do, that to me is all I need to know, because that means that I'm doing something right. And you have to follow your own hearts in this. You know, I can't be somebody else and do what they want. I have to look at whatever projects I'm thinking of and say, this works for me. And it seems that over the years, that mostly has been something that most fans who buy our productions have followed me with. But I'll always listen. And the example is, I was at a convention, I think a British one, about a year ago. And if the person who did this wants to get in touch with me on Messenger or something, I'll be very grateful, because I need to do it with thanks to. And he came up to me, and I get this all the time, you know, somebody goes, you know what you should do, Keith? Yeah. You must have a lot of footage from Return to Devil's End that you didn't use in the edit, because you were filming for 2 days, weren't you? Yeah. Well, why don't you do an edit of all the footage that wasn't used? Because I would love to see that. And I went, yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, no, thanks, great idea. And then I walked away. I mean, I was very polite about it, and I was very grateful for but I walked away, and a bit later I thought, that's not a bad idea. I would like to actually watch all the rushes again, because we only used one. Like, we would do a load of interview, which we cut a lot out of, but we also did lots of walkie-talkie takes of them walking around the village, and we only used one of each. And of course, they said different things each time, or they made mistakes and we all laughed and we had to start again. Now, I wouldn't mind seeing that. So I've actually done most of the editing of that and it's a big production, and it's not what I would call a television production. It is a fan film for fans who would love to just see John, Nick, John and Richard walking around Aldbourne talking. I've just got to do the links with Nick Briggs at some point, and we'll have that out. But that's it. You've always got to listen.
Absolutely. And I would love to see that. I think that would be great. I would get that in a heartbeat.
Did you see my subtle sales pitch there?
I did. And by the way, we will include all ordering information at the conclusion of the interview. So we want to get that out there. Wonderful stuff. So let me ask Dylan. So how has the Doctor Who community responded to the book so far? I don't know if very many copies got to the United States. I was lucky to get mine before any tariffs kicked in. So what was the response?
Just on the United States front, it's not available right now, but once the last few of the colour version are sold out, which I believe will happen very shortly, the black and white version will go up, which you can get through Amazon. So Amazon will print directly in the US, so it will be available for people who want a physical copy.
And the only difference is that the photo section is in black and white rather than colour, which is a shame. But to be able to get it,
because they're beautiful. I mean, the colors are really nice.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
That's okay. One page. That's okay. For promotional use, you could do that. That's wonderful. So, what's been the response in the UK on the book?
It's been really, really positive. I think, I've been blown away with just how many sort of direct messages and stuff I've had from people going, oh, I'm really enjoying the book, and I've pulled out my old VHSs, or I've ordered this off Time Travel TV, or I'm streaming this off Time Travel TV. And I just think it's, because obviously Reeltime has a core fan base that this has tapped into, but sometimes as Doctor Who fans, you buy these things, you watch them once, you put them on the shelf, and perhaps you don't come back to it, or you come back to it again. So I think there's been a real, what I'm seeing is just renewed interest in revisiting their collections and their archive, and going, oh, it's so nice to watch these things again, which has been really great. And everybody's been very positive and just really enjoying it.
Well, as a collector, I've noticed, since I track eBay sales, I've noticed a lot more old Mythmakers tapes coming up for sale in the last couple months, and trending. So people are doing the searches. They're looking for some of these old tapes to get the old original versions. As part of their collection, I'm sure that's something that I hear from people going, "Hey, where can I get these early things?" I said, "Well, I don't know. You might have to search the auction sites or wherever, but because the originals are long gone." But I was lucky to hold on to some of mine, like my copy of Wartime. I've had since I bought it, and I remember handing this to you, Keith, last year, and you were like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah, I remember.
And
pushed me into a corner and shoved a pen in my
I did,
face.
yeah, I did. Well, actually, it was a tent, but
okay, fair point.
That's okay. But it's such a wonderful thing because I really enjoyed watching it, and I watched it several times, and I even I know you were very persuasive to sell me the update, so that was really nice. I look forward to that as well. And I know U.S. fans, the black and white version will be available soon. But if you want to pay a little extra and get it from Telos, you can do that as well. Because
I think he literally might have 10 or 11 copies left. So if there's anybody there who really wants that to get that, and I am not selling them for him, and I don't get a commission. I actually know that there are virtually none left. But I think the issue that's coming out through Amazon is going to be essentially exactly the same, and the content is still there.
Yeah, and that's what everybody wants. They want the content. I also want to point out to the cover by Alex Storer is really nice, and I had Alex on the show not long ago because I did one of his other books, and I really love how the cover came out. How was Alex employed here for this? Was that you, Dylan, or Keith, or who?
It's a bit of a mixture. I mean, I got to know Alex through doing the Doctor on Displays. I've had a really, well, actually, one of the people who works on the BBC VAMs, who was doing my Steve Broster, has been doing my inlays for years, but he had a real problem. He was so busy with his daytime job and doing VAM for the BBC. And he actually said to me at one point, "I want to do them for you every once in a while, but if you could find somebody else who could do some as well, I'd be really grateful." When we did Doctor on Display, of course, Alex is a professional graphics designer as well. I asked him, would he be interested in doing the inlays for the DVDs? And the range of inlays, the one you showed, the greatest show in the galaxy, all of those designs are his designs. He did the series of designs, and I love them, and I really enjoyed working with him. And David Howe, the publisher at Telos, who did the book, and Dylan and I all talked about it and said, Alex would be brilliant to do the cover for this. And him, I mean, this whole thing, Dylan did all the real work, but the rest of us all sort of chipped in with bits and pieces of it. And the cover is absolutely a collaborative effort of all of us.
Yes. My favorite image here is you talking to Syl here.
That's not Syl. It's an actor called Nabil.
I know Nabil, but still, it just looks great.
Yeah,
I love
it's
that.
I have to be honest, it's one of my favorite shots because I actually look intelligent in it.
Yes. Well, so you're really taking a lunch order, right? Is that the?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Egg and cress.
Yeah. Oh, Dylan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Keith's absolutely right. It was a collaborative process. I think we all had slightly different ideas, and then Alex took those away and sort of used bits of them to come up with what we've got. And I think we were all, once we saw it, we were all like, right, that's it, that's the one. So while we were slightly all pulling in different directions, he pulled us in the right directions, and we were like, this is it. We're there now. We've got what we want.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Let's see. If you had the opportunity to do a Mythmakers with someone that hasn't done one, who would be your next choice?
Oh, that's easy. There's only one. No, there are three people left from Classic Who that I think would be de rigueur. One would be Peter Davison. I hope perhaps one day he'll do one. Obviously, the decision is entirely his.
Right.
Lala Ward. And again, it's just circumstance that means we haven't got round to it, and hopefully we'll do it one day. But the one that is the top of the list, and I pray will happen in the next couple of months, is Maureen O'Brien.
Oh, yes.
And really, that's it then. I mean, that doesn't mean we're going to stop. I keep saying, I feel Mythmakers has reached the end of its lifespan in terms of, because New Who has so been covered by so many productions. All of the actors have said so much. I don't honestly think there's a place for Mythmakers in New Who, not in the way that it existed with Classic Who.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that it won't happen. But it does mean that I see that side of things just calming down a bit, and not so many. And we'll perhaps concentrate more on specials.
Okay, sounds good. Dylan, are there any future projects with you that you're working on right now that you could talk about?
Not Doctor Who related, no. I have a few ideas, but I'm taking a little break on that front because I'm getting married next year. And
congratulations!
I can't start writing a new book in that time because I won't end up getting married. But beyond that, I do a Doctor Who podcast called Doctor Who Too Hot for TV, which looks at anything Doctor Who that isn't the TV show, so books, real-time productions, Big Finish.
But you haven't interviewed me yet.
I've interviewed you many times, Keith.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
I started the podcast about the same time as I started researching this book, and so I purposely didn't really do many real-time things because I was like, I'm already writing about this. But now the book's done,
Right.
we'll start covering that. But generally, it's me and a guest. We pick two random or connected bits of Doctor Who ephemera and talk about them.
And so where can listeners find your podcast?
Wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all those. I believe they call them podcatchers, although I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm on all of those too, so it's wonderful, wonderful stuff. Keith, where can people in the UK and the US buy from Reeltime Pictures?
Well, I think the other big thing that's changed over the last 5 or 6, 7 years is the ability to download and stream.
Right.
And I think what I would say to everybody out there, if they're interested in anything that we've done, we're not licensed BBC products, so I don't think you need to collect physically. Okay, that doesn't mean you can't, and I will carry on producing our products in DVD, in NTSC and PAL, and ship to the world as long as people want them. But I would say Mythmakers in particular, and most of our product, why not stream it or download it and build your collection on your hard drive? Because frankly, the information is the most important thing. And because it's not a licensed product, it's not really necessary to be part of your Doctor Who physical collection. I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy a drama from us, perhaps on Blu-ray or DVD, but the option to download and stream in America means you can buy anything from us straight off our website and watch it at not unreasonable prices, really.
I have to agree.
And that's at www.timetraveltv.com.
And we'll have that link on our website, as well as links to Dylan's podcast. I want to thank both of you guys for being on the show today. This was a lot of fun.
It's been great to be here.
Silence.
Well,
it may have been for you, Larry.
I might have to put crickets over that. Crickets.
Maybe we could do a quick edit there, and Dylan and I'll just jump in and go, "Oh yes,
that's
brilliant for us too." Yeah. No, it's
Awesome.
been a riot. It's been a riot. I really wish I was at Doctoberfest, but I am not wealthy enough to fly out to every convention.
It was great having you there last year. It was a lot of fun.
It was.
Just the listeners, I'm actually the head guest this year at Doctoberfest, so I'll be
Well, that's not right, Larry.
I know. Well, I see it this way. We had Sophie Aldred, Keith Barnfather, and now me. So it's just a natural order of things, I think.
Yeah, it's just
as we go down to them, and they're really and it'll be a lot of fun. We're presenting Doctor Who toys and games from 1964 to the present, which I have a pretty good. I don't have the largest collection in the world. In fact, the guys that do are coming over here later. They're in the Guinness Book. William and Lee Thompson.
Oh, I know of them. Yeah.
Yes, they actually did the work and all this. I did a podcast on them, and it was just amazing to learn what they did. But they have even twice what I have, and I've been doing this for 44 years. So it's been quite nice. But gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. It was great to have you, Keith and Dylan. Thank you so much. And the book, everybody, is Doctor Who Myths and Legends: The Reeltime Pictures Story, and you can get the limited copies left at telos.co.uk or hang on for Amazon in the United States to get the black and white copy. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Cheers, it's been a pleasure.
And listeners, please stay tuned for the most outrageous offer.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week, we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Witt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast on the Direction Point Podcast Network. Keep collecting.
All my travellings throughout the universe, I have battled against evil, against power-mad conspirators. I should have stayed here. The oldest civilization. Decadent, degenerate, and rotten to the core. Power-mad conspirators, Daleks, Sontarans, Cybermen. They're still in the nursery compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really corrupt.
And now it's time for the most outrageous offer. The most outrageous offer is a Doctor Who item or Doctor Who related item that appears to be priced way beyond what it should be, or absolutely crazy expensive for no reason at all, except for somebody being absolutely greedy and unknowledgeable about the product. This happens way too often out here. I get way too many of these. Well, today we have a Target book. The Target book is Doctor Who Silver Nemesis by Kevin Clark, published in 93. This is there was no hardcover of Silver Nemesis. Only one Sylvester McCoy made it to hardcover, and that's Time in the Rani. So, this is sold by Toscana Books out of Austin, Texas, with a 5-star seller review. They've been online here. This is from Abe Books, which is the majority of where I get these. But anyway, let's talk about this. This is a brand new copy of Silver Nemesis. $4.30 shipping within the United States, but they're asking for $1,492.78, which is completely odd because this is in the United States and it's got an odd price. So my guess is this is probably a grand mistake. No, you don't need to pay that. We looked around just on Abe Books. I didn't bother going anywhere else, but the lowest price I found here was for a new copy for $5. I think we sold one out of the podcast here for $15, which is not bad. I've also seen them for $14 and $8 and $12. You can find this book for a lot less than the going price of $1,492.78. I'm sorry, Toscana Books, you are never going to get that amount of money for this particular book. Yes, these later books are a little bit harder to find, but not terribly hard to find, because I just found 15 of them, and they're all under, $10. So there you go. I don't understand. I think other major retail stores, I know DoctorWhoStore.com has it, and there you go. So
that's, that wraps it up. So let's wrap it up for that. That's the most outrageous offer, and let's wrap it up for the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I want to thank my guests today, Dylan Rees and Keith Barnfather. Great to have them both on there. I've met Keith in person last year. Great guy, and we became really good friends. Anyway, next episode, we're going to have a conversation with the great David J. Howe. Yes, he's been here before, and we're going to talk about his book, Who Me? And until then, follow us on TikTok and keep collecting.
A Doctor Who Podcast Network.